bloc would erode the influence of the Communist Party as the most voted sector in the Broad Front, a banner that would then pass through the less compromised Socialist Party and, by 2004, on to the younger, fresher and more participatory style of Mujica's movement for popular participation. Equally significant in the long term was the Frente's first electoral victory. It captured the Municipal Council of Montevideo under the candidacy of Tabaré Vázquez, this again in 1989, whose support base was the Socialist Party. The Frente's policy in Montevideo emphasized renewal of infrastructure in the poorer, frequently ignored areas of the city, a general clean-up of the centre, an attempt to roll back the all-pervasive practice of clientelism, and a deliberate, if only partially successful campaign to decentralise the bureaucracy and involve residents in making important decisions that affected them directly, as well as holding back wherever possible the worst effects of the aggressive neoliberal economic policies of the National and Colorado Party national administration. It was also, of course, the Broad Front, the Frente, first chance to exercise political power. Its performance has been efficient enough to guarantee its hold on Montevideo's town hall until today. Also in 1989, the internal structure of the Frente changed, which would have very significant consequences. The creation of several moderate reformist groupings reflected both the tenor of the Front's internal debates as well as the ever more pressing need for a nationally electable alternative to successive centre-right administrations. 1994 found a Broad Front successor to Vázquez as mayor of Montevideo, freeing him to run as the next national leader of the Broad Front after the much-respected Liber Sereni proved unable to adapt to the changing political circumstances both within and outside the organisation. The economist Danilo Astori, a leader of his own group, was a strong rival to Vázquez until he made the mistake of supporting Sereni in 1996, which fatally weakened his challenge for the presidential candidacy in 1999, and incidentally facilitated the ascendancy of the movement or participation of the people, which I'll come to in just a moment. Vázquez himself created the Encuentro Progresista, progressive meeting point, which arguably would become the linchpin of the Broad Front's electoral fortunes in 1999 and 2004. The EP, the Encuentro Progresista, was principally made up of progressive Christian Democrats, who had by then returned to the Frente after leaving in 1989, and a group of fugitives from the National Party, led by the man who became Vázquez's running mate in 2004. Combined with Vázquez's Socialist Party affiliations, the Encuentro Progresista became a potent reformist force within the Frente and enabled Vázquez to see off Astori's challenge in 1999. Astori, however, was rewarded in 2004, being named as Minister of Finance well before the elections, a gesture that reassured commercial and banking circles where he was already held in high esteem. His performance there made him briefly Mujica's internal rival in 2009 and eventually Vice President today. Several other historical matters need to be briefly mentioned. The most important of these were the constitutional changes of 1996, one of which instituted a second round in national elections if no party got more than 50% in the first. This latter measure meant that although the Frente was the most voted party on the first round in 1999, it achieved just over 40% of the national vote, it was forced to run off against the Colorado's candidate, who had come second, and who arranged an alliance with the Nationals, whose supporters for the first time in Uruguayan history were obliged to vote for their traditional arch-enemy. The strategy worked in the short term. Vázquez lost to the Colorado's Jorge Bachi, but it set a dangerous precedent. It taught traditional party followers that they could vote outside their normal party lines, thus encouraging the creation of a relative novelty in Uruguayan electoral politics, the swinging voter. The Frente have by now doubled its vote since 1989 and got over 30% in the interior of the country, where their support had been historically low. As the National and Colorado administrations moved further to the right, especially in their implementation of neoliberal economic policies, the Frente was picking up votes from the vacated centre and the marginalised poor without having to move to the right itself, a process sealed by the financial debacle of 2001-2. The left then did not so much move to the centre, the right vacated it and the left expanded to include it. Secondly, the Frente's current political platform is a pared-back moderation of its original programme. Gone are the once almost obligatory references to anti-oligarchy and anti-imperialism. The tone toward the United States is now more conciliatory, though still critical. And the need for, and the need for dialogue with local business and employer organisations is recognised. In other words, the heavily pro-union bias has also been written out. Also expunged is the idea of nationalising financial institutions and implementing complete control over foreign trade. Retained, however, are the desire to distribute income, a commitment to those in most need, the determination that the state will mitigate the worst effects of the application of globalised market forces, and a reinvigorated plan for regional integration through Mercosur and other alliances. Similarly, although the process has been streamed somewhat so that more decisions can be taken by majority than by consensus, the emphasis of the Frente's decision-making procedures is still on dialogue, consultation and open debate. A third consideration is what has come to be called, ironically, the traditionalisation of the Broad Front. It is ironic because the Frente, the Broad Front, is becoming more like the two traditional parties in that its own history or tradition is becoming a more essential element in its identity. While association with globalised, non-national kinds of modernisation has increasingly de-traditionalised the Colorados and the Nationals, the so-called traditional parties. The Frente's history is one of sacrifice and courage dating from the days of its resistance to Pacheco's authoritarianism in the 1960s and to the 12 years of military dictatorship. This has produced a tradition by successfully passing loyalty to it from one generation to the next, and moreover, as it were, stealing the children of traditionally Colorado or national families. The Frente's standing and the loyalty it inspired were enhanced throughout almost the entire post-dictatorship period by its role in organising plebiscites or referenda to oppose proposals varying from the one guaranteeing immunity to the military for human rights violations in 1989 to those attacking privatisation legislation a decade later. These exercises honed the party's mobilisation skills and built up a legion of activists and supporters by associating it with popular opposition to both Colorado and national governments, even when the projects themselves failed to win the approval of the majority of the electorate. When the political limitations of social movements became clear, many of their militants, especially among the young, moved over to the front, most frequently to the movement for participation by the people, which, now led by José Mujica, is what the MLN had become after going through a series of transformations just as dramatic as those I have just outlined for the Broad Front as a whole. When Raúl Sendic, the iconic founder of Tupamaros MLN, emerged very damaged from the military's jail in March 1985, he brought with him the idea for a political front that would be to the left of the existing Frente Amplio, but would include it. The embodiment of a transformed and legalised MLN devised in prison by himself and other leading members of the organisation. While this notion would have predictably not prosper, the existing Broad Front inevitably shot it down as a rival. It would become the basis of an MLN committed to electoral democracy that coalesced